प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद जय द्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंज राधा कुंज गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय, मायापुर धाम की जय, जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, संवेद भक्त वृंद की जय। निताई गौ प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. We are reading from Caitanya Charitamrta, Adi Lila, Chapter 1, The Spiritual Masters, text number 54. Rityartham yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyat atmano mayam yatha bhaso yatha tamaha. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. What appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows, for in the light there are neither shadows nor reflections. Purport. In the previous verse, the absolute truth and its nature have been explained. One must also understand the relative truth to actually know the absolute. The relative truth, which is called Maya or material nature, is explained here. Maya has no independent existence. One who is less intelligent is captivated by the wonderful activities of Maya, but he does not understand that behind these activities is the direction of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.10, it is said, Maya Dakshina Prakriti Suyate Sa Characharam. The material nature is working and producing moving and non moving beings only by the supervision of Krishna. The real nature of Maya, the illusory existence of the material manifestation, is clearly explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. The absolute truth is substance, and the relative truth depends upon its relationship with the absolute for its existence. Maya means energy, therefore, the relative truth is explained to be the energy of the absolute truth. Since it is difficult to understand the distinction between the absolute and relative truths, an analogy can be given for clarification. The absolute truth can be compared to the sun, which is appreciated in terms of two relative truths: reflection and darkness. Darkness is the absence of sunshine, and a um, sorry, where was I? Darkness is the absence of sunshine, and um, darkness is the absence of sunshine, and a reflection is a projection of sunlight into darkness. Neither darkness nor reflection has an independent existence. Darkness comes when the sunshine is blocked. For example, if one stands facing the sun, his back will be in darkness. Since darkness stands in the absence of the sun, it is therefore relative to the sun. The spiritual world is compared to the real sunshine, and the material world is compared to the dark regions where the sun is not visible. When the material manifestation appears very wonderful, this is due to a perverted reflection of the supreme sunshine, the absolute truth, as confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra. Whatever one can see here has its substance in the absolute. As darkness is situated far away from the sun, so the material world is also far away from the spiritual world. The Vedic literature directs us not to be captivated by the dark regions, tamaha, but to try to reach the shining regions of the absolute, yogidham. The spiritual world is brightly illuminated, but the material world is wrapped in darkness. In the material world, sunshine, moonshine, or different kinds of artificial light are required to dispel darkness, especially at night, for by nature the material world is dark. Therefore, the Supreme Lord has arranged for sunshine and moonshine. But in his abode, as described in the Bhagavad Gita 15.6, there is no necessity for lighting by sunshine, moonshine, or electricity because everything is self effulgent. That which is relative, temporary, and far away from the absolute truth is called Maya or ignorance. This illusion is exhibited in two ways, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. The inferior illusion is inert matter, and the superior illusion is the living entity. The living entities are called illusory in this context only because they are implicated in the illusory structures and activities of the material world. Actually, the living entities are not illusory, for they are parts of the superior energy of the Supreme Lord and do not have to be covered by Maya if they do not want to be so. The actions of the living entities in the spiritual kingdom are not illusory, they are the actual eternal activities of liberated souls. Om Ajnanathimurandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ominitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. What a beautiful verse. So we can see in this verse that Krishna is the cause of all causes. Everything rests upon him. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mataha Parataram Nanyat Kinchit Asti Dhananjaya. That everything, just like the pearls, right? They are resting on the thread. That thread is Krishna. Everything is resting on Krishna. So, what is Maya? Maya is the truth without Krishna. There is no Krishna. Krishna has already explained the absolute truth, right? He has explained to us the difference between relative truth and absolute truth, even in Bhagavad Gita. What is relative truth? Relative truth means, in other words, Maya, material nature. That's very simple. And Maya is dependent on Krishna, right? Dependent on Krishna, very important to understand. People generally, they get attracted to Maya. Oh, this is so nice to hear, this is so nice to see, this is so nice to eat, this is such an attractive person, or whatever it is. But they forget that Maya is under the control of Krishna. Maya Dakshina Prakriti Suyati Sa Characharam. Material nature is working under the direction of Krishna. Krishna is the director, he is the supervisor, he is the sanctioner, he is the absolute truth, he is the supreme personality of Godhead. So, absolute truth means Krishna, permanent, right? Relative truth is not permanent. It is, and the relative truth is dependent on Krishna. And as we saw in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that Maya is Krishna's energy. Not easy to understand at all, difficult. And even it is difficult to understand the difference between absolute truth and relative truth. So Prabhupada, he is explaining in the purport with a very nice analogy. He says that absolute truth is absolute truth is like the sun, and when one is facing the sun, the back is in darkness, which is very natural, right? But when the sun is absent, there is darkness. So the spiritual world is like that sunshine, and the material world is like darkness. So that can give us an indication that we are at the wrong place. We are in this material world, which is a wrong place, which is not the right place at all. We have to come out of this wrong place and go to the right place, which is the spiritual world. So Prabhupada says that when people, they start thinking, Maya is so wonderful, it is amazing, it is awesome. What is that? This is due to the perverted reflection of the supreme sunshine. Here in the material world, as we have read in the Bhagavad Gita, also chapter 15, perverted reflection, right? So, wherever there is Krishna, there is no darkness, there is no ignorance at all. But wherever there is no Krishna, then we can understand. Absence of Krishna means presence of Maya. That is how we can understand. And as Prabhupada explains, when the sun is there, there is no darkness, right? So darkness is far from sun, like the material world is far away from the spiritual world, right? Material world, we need artificial light. As soon as the sun sets and sun rises elsewhere, when there is no sunshine in the material world, we need artificial light, we need tube lights, we need bulbs, we need artificial light. But the spiritual world, as explained even in Bhagavad Gita, is illuminated by Krishna's effulgence. The Brahma Jyoti coming out from Krishna's, that effulgence coming out from Krishna's body, that is what illuminates the whole spiritual world. So if one is attracted to Maya, then they come back into this material world. But if one gets attracted to Krishna, then one goes back to Godhead. So Bhagavad Gita also teaches us the same thing, that we should not get attracted to Maya. And Prabhupada explains, excuse me, he explains Maya means it is temporary, it is relative, and it is away from Krishna. And living entities, they are not illusory, they are not like some imagination. No, they are parts of Krishna. We are jivera swarupoy krishnera nityadas, we are eternal servants of Krishna. And Krishna says mamay vamsha jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatana, we are amshas, we are parts of Krishna. And it's just that we have become covered up by Maya, conditioning is there, right? But we have a choice. We can come out of that conditioning. We can make ourselves pure. We can purify our existence, come out of the clutches of Maya, and go back to the spiritual world, which is our eternal home. Now let's go to verse number 55. यथा महांति भूतानि भूतेषु चाश्वचेष्व अनु प्रविष्ठानि अप्रविष्ठानि तथा तेषु न तेष्व अहम. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. As the material elements enter the bodies of all living beings and yet remain outside them all, I exist within all material creations and yet am not within them. Purport. The gross material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, combined with the subtle material elements, mind, intelligence, and false ego, to construct the bodies of this material world, and yet they are beyond these bodies as well. Any material construction is nothing but an amalgamation or combination of material elements in varied proportions. These elements exist both within and beyond the body. For example, although the sky exists in space, it also enters within the body. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, who is the cause of the material energy, lives within the material world as well as beyond it. Without his presence within the material world, the cosmic body could not develop. Just as without the presence of the spirit within the physical body, the body could not develop. The entire material manifestation develops and exists because the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters it as Paramatma, or the Super Soul. The personality of Godhead, in his all pervading feature of Paramatma, enters every entity from the biggest to the most minute. His existence can be realized by one who has a single qualification of submissiveness, and who thereby becomes a surrendered soul. The development of submissiveness is the cause of proportionate spiritual realization, by which one can ultimately meet the Supreme Lord in person as a man meets another man face to face. Because of his development of transcendental attachment for the Supreme Lord, a surrendered soul feels the presence of his beloved everywhere, and all his senses are engaged in the loving service of the Lord. His eyes are engaged in seeing the beautiful couple Sri Radha and Krishna sitting on a decorated throne beneath a desire tree in the transcendental land of Vrindavan. His nose is engaged in smelling the spiritual aroma of the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, his ears are engaged in hearing messages from Vaikuntha, and his hands embrace the lotus feet of the Lord and his associates. Thus, the Lord is manifested to a pure devotee from within and without. This is one of the mysteries of the devotional relationship, in which a devotee and the Lord are bound by a tie of spontaneous love. To achieve this love should be the goal of life for every living being. What a beautiful verse. See, Bhagavad Gita also talks about the same thing. Krishna exists within all creations, but he is not in them, right? Bhagavad Gita also explains the gross body and the subtle body. Gross material elements are used for material bodies. They are in there, yet they are beyond the bodies, right? Just like it's explained in this verse that this body has, earth, water, fire, air, ether, these material elements. Does that mean that it's only within our bodies and not outside? It's there outside too, right? These material elements are outside also. They are there, yet they are beyond the bodies also. That's what is explained in this verse. And we have experienced that the material things, they are made of material elements, and these elements, they exist within and without. Similarly, Krishna is explaining, I am within and I am without. He is everywhere, he is in everything, and yet he is not in them, right? Again, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has explained, Achintya Bhed Abheda Tattva, simultaneously one and different. So just as the soul is required, is necessary for the body to grow, so also Krishna is present for the creation, right? Everything is happening because of Krishna. What does Lord Brahma say in his very first verse in Brahma Samhita, right? Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the cause of all causes. So it's important to understand that everything happens because of Krishna. He is all pervading. Why? Because he is the supreme personality of Godhead. And what does Prabhupada explain in the purport? He explains how we can understand Krishna. Now, first of all, we have to make a choice. Do we want to understand Krishna or do we not want to understand? If we don't want to understand Krishna, then this verse is not required for us. But if we really want to understand Krishna, then Prabhupada explains very nicely. He says, submissiveness is the quality required. Same thing we heard even in Bhagavad Gita, right? Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. There has to be submissive inquiry. So even when we ask questions, there has to be some submission. That submissiveness is the quality required, and only when when a person is submissive, that humility will be possible. That means when we are, supposing we are hearing some Krishna Katha, we are, hearing a lecture, or, we are hearing Prabhupada, that submissiveness is very essential. Then only humility will develop. One should understand that, yes, it is not possible for me to have complete knowledge. That's impossible. I have to just build up on this knowledge. I learned this today, tomorrow I'll learn something more. And this is how we all go on hearing submissively. So when we hear submissively, then we will be able to surrender to Krishna, because these qualities, submissiveness and humility, they will lead us to surrender. So submissive hearing is very attitude, submissive attitude, and self realization one can reach only when one has these qualities within them. Now shastras also teach us how we should become attached to Krishna. And the process is very easily given to us by Srila Prabhupada. Simple, simple, very simple process. And even in towards the end of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, what does Krishna say? Sarva dharman parityagya mam ekam sharanam vraja. He says, only surrender unto me. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. So, surrender is very necessary if we want to have a loving relationship, like even between husband and wife. If the husband and wife want to have a loving relationship, there has to be some surrender, there has to be some humility, right? And in the spiritual life, humility and surrender comes when we have when we start performing devotional service very sincerely and very seriously. Prabhupada mentions in the purport about using the senses in Krishna's service. And who do we think of? Which personality, which pure devotee that comes to our mind when we think about complete surrender? Ambarish Maharaj. He used all his senses in serving Krishna. How? In loving devotional service. It wasn't he was performing that service out of necessity or because someone asked him to do it, or oh, I have to do it. No, he did that because he was engaged in loving service to Krishna. And in this loving service to Krishna, sound vibrations play a very important role. Why? Because our hearts are very impure, right? They need a lot of cleansing. The heart is full of anarthas, lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, illusion. So much gunk is in there in the heart. So that when we start chanting attentively, what does Prabhupada say even in his japa tapes, right? When we hear Srila Prabhupada chanting, he says, sit properly, which means it's not just the posture, it also means to concentrate, to hear what we are chanting. Because in Kali Yuga, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, sound vibration is the process for deliverance. And that is why this Maha Mantra is given to us in Kali Yuga for deliverance, so that we can break the cycle of birth and death and go back to the spiritual world. So when we chant attentively, that will help us not only to remove the anarthas, but it is also going to help us to make a strong bond, strong relationship with Krishna. And the goal should be spontaneous love for Krishna. And that is only possible when we make that sincere effort, when we are serious on this path of Krishna consciousness. Let's go to verse number 56. एतावद् एव जिज्ञास्यं तत्त्वजिज्ञासुनात्मनः अन्वयव्यतिरेका no अन्वयव्यतिरेकाभयां यत् स्यात् सर्वत्र सर्वदा. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. A person interested in transcendental knowledge must, therefore, always directly and indirectly inquire about it to know the all pervading truth. Purport. Those who are serious about the knowledge of the transcendental world, which is far beyond the material cosmic creation, must approach a bona fide spiritual master to learn the science both directly and indirectly. One must learn both means to approach the desired destination and the hindrances to such progress. The spiritual master knows how to regulate the habits of a neophyte disciple, and therefore a serious student must learn the science in all its aspects from him. There are different grades and standards of prosperity. The standard of comfort and happiness conceived by a common man engaged in material labor is the lowest grade of happiness, for it is in relationship with the body. The highest standard of such bodily comfort is achieved by a fruitive worker who, by pious activities, reaches the plane of heaven or the kingdom of the creative gods with their delegated powers. But the conception of comfortable life in heaven is insignificant in comparison to the happiness enjoyed in the impersonal Brahman And this Brahmananda, the spiritual bliss derived from impersonal Brahman, is like the water in the hoof print of a calf compared to the ocean of transcendental happiness from the association of the personality of Godhead. To qualify oneself to reach this stage of life is the highest perfection. One should try to purchase a ticket to go back home, back to Garden. The price of such a ticket is one's intense desire for it, which is not easily awakened even if one continuously performs pious activities for thousands of lives. All mundane relationships are sure to be broken in the course of time, but once one establishes a relationship with the personality of Godhead in a particular rasa, it is never to be broken, even after the annihilation of the material worlds. One should understand through the transparent medium of the spiritual master that the Supreme Lord exists everywhere in his transcendental spiritual nature, and that the living entities' relationships with the Lord are directly and indirectly existing everywhere, even in this material world. In the spiritual world, there are five kinds of relationships with the Supreme Lord: Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. The perverted reflections of these rasas are found in the material world. Land, home, furniture, and other inert material objects are related in Shanta, or the neutral and silent sense, whereas servants work in the Dasya relationship. The reciprocation between friends is called Sakya, the affection of a parent for a child is known as Vatsalya, and the affairs of conjugal love constitute Madhurya. These five relationships in the material world are distorted reflections of the original pure sentiments, which should be understood and perfected in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. In the material world, the perverted rasas bring frustration. If these rasas are re-established with Lord Krishna, the result is eternal blissful life. From this and the preceding three verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrta, which have been selected from Srimad Bhagavatam, the missionary activities of Lord Chaitanya can be understood. Srimad Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses, which are summarized in the four verses beginning with Aham Evasam Evagre 53, and concluding with Yat Syat Sarvatra Sarvada 56. In the first of these verses, 53, the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is explained. The second verse, 54, further explains that the Lord is detached from the workings of the material energy Maya. The living entities, although parts and parcels of Lord Krishna, are prone to be controlled by the external energy. Therefore, although they are spiritual, in the material world, they are encased in bodies of material energy. The eternal relationship of the living entities with the Supreme Lord is explained in that verse. The next verse, 55, instructs that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable energies, is simultaneously one with and different from the living entities and the material energy. All
Your screen is frozen, Mataji.
Okay, give few more second. I think
should be the primary concern of a human being. In the next verse 56, it is said that a conditioned soul must ultimately approach a bona fide spiritual master and try to understand perfectly.
Mataji, we did not listen to the Achintya Veda Ved portion. You got
Okay,
disconnected that time.
okay. The next verse 55 instructs that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable energies, is simultaneously one with and different from the living entities and the material energy. This knowledge is called Achintya Bhed Abheda Tattva. When an individual living entity surrenders to the Supreme Lord Krishna, he can then develop natural transcendental love for him. This surrendering process should be the primary concern of a human being. In the next verse 56, it is said that a conditioned soul must ultimately approach a bona fide spiritual master and try to understand perfectly the material and spiritual worlds and his own existential position. Here, the words Anvaya Vyatirekha Bhayam, directly and indirectly, suggest that one must learn the process of devotional service in its two aspects. One must directly execute the process of devotional service and indirectly avoid the impediments to progress. So, what a wonderful verse, and what a beautiful purport by Srila Prabhupada. So, first thing we have to understand, are we interested in Krishna consciousness or not? We have to decide what is our goal. If we are interested, then we need to inquire. From whom? From Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru, right? Talking about Shiksha Guru, we have been talking about this for the past 2 3 weeks, that, you know, we cannot use this word Shiksha Guru for anyone. It's not that someone is giving knowledge is a Shiksha Guru. No, just giving knowledge to others does not mean Shiksha Guru, right? One who, so then the question will be, then who is to be considered a Shiksha Guru, right? So I was listening, I actually asked this question to a devotee in one of the lectures that I was, live lectures I was listening, and he explained so nicely. He said, someone who takes that devotee deeper into Krishna consciousness, then that is to be considered Shiksha Guru. So that mood has to be there both ways, Shiksha Guru and the one who's taking the Shiksha. That mood, that trust has to be there between the two, right? And that Shiksha Guru should be chanting very purely, so that that Shiksha Guru can guide others, right? So we should not take this word Shiksha Guru very lightly. It's a very heavy word. So, here in this verse and in purport, we saw that inquiry is very, very important, right? Directly or indirectly. Inquire about what? Do we inquire about what's the stock market today, or do we inquire about who is the who's the film star who's reigning high, is what do we inquire about? We inquire about Krishna, about the absolute truth. Krishna is the absolute truth. And Prabhupada in his purport is saying that those who are serious about Krishna consciousness, they approach a Diksha Guru. They learn the science, right? Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadyakshanti ke jnanam gnani manas tattva darshina. That tattva darshina, one who has seen the truth, he can impart knowledge. But impart knowledge onto whom? Only to one who is inquiring submissively and rendering service with humility. Now, one may say, but my Diksha Guru is not here. How can I render service? How is that possible? Yes, Prabhupada explains, we can render service unto our Diksha Guru by following the instructions. That is service. And what is the standard instruction we receive from Diksha Guru? Chant attentively, read Srila Prabhupada's books, associate with devotees, render service, render service even in the temple, preach. These are the instructions of the Diksha Guru. So we must understand that if we really want to become serious in Krishna consciousness, we have to approach a bona fide spiritual master. There is no choice. And to emphasize this point, what did Krishna do? When he came 500 years ago, he himself accepted a bona fide spiritual master, right? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he accepted Ishvara Puri. When Krishna came in his original form more than 5,000 years ago, what did he do? He accepted Sandipani Muni as his guru, right? To set an example. Krishna says, I am doing it. You got to do it too. No, no, no. I'm sorry, not you got to do it. But it is good if you can do it, right? He's giving us a choice. He has given us that minute independence so we can choose. I want to be on this side, or I want to be on that side. I want to enjoy in material world, or I want to go to my eternal home, which is the spiritual world. So he's giving us a choice, and that itself shows he really loves us, right? And he is giving us a process, he's giving us the knowledge, and then he's leaving it up to us. You decide. What does chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita tell us, right? Sarvasichaham hridi sanivishto matah smritir jnanam apohanam cha. He says, from me comes remembrance, forgetfulness, and also knowledge. But he's asking us to decide, what do you want? Krishna wants to know from us. Then we choose based on whatever intelligence we have. If we have sharpened our intelligence with knowledge, then we make the correct choice. So here Prabhupada also says that yes, there will be obstacles, there will be hindrances in the spiritual path. Yes, there will be a lot of them. But now we have to recognize those obstacles. What is it that is stopping me from progressing spiritually? We have to recognize. If we are unable to recognize, then we take advice from senior devotees and inquire from them. What do you think, based on my situation, what is it that is stopping me from progressing further, right? It is very understood from, I'm sure y'all, from your experience also, you can tell that spiritual life is not a bed of roses, right? It's not that we all are in ecstasy and we are dancing and we are, fully Krishna conscious, pure, liberated souls, there are hindrances, there are obstacles. Oh Lord, now what do I do about this? Now there's so many hindrances and obstacles. But if we perform austerity, which is necessary, Prabhupada is saying in the purport also that austerity is very, very necessary. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has already talked about austerity. Austerity of the mind, austerity of the speech, austerity of the body. But the spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master, he can help us, guide us in regulating our senses if we are serious. Because even, I'm sure you all have noticed, even when you were in school, I also noticed when I was in school, that the teacher gave more importance to those who were serious. Do you agree? Right? Those who are, careless, not interested in listening, called the backbenchers, who would sit at the back, talking, chit chatting, and not interested. Do you think the teacher would be interested in such children? No, the teacher will guide and say, please don't talk, please do your lessons, please do your homework. But after a while, then the teacher is going to concentrate on those who are serious in getting the education, right? So similarly, the guru can help us in regulating our senses. If we are serious, he can guide us, but he's not going to guide those who are not interested or serious, right? So when the guru is guiding us, we should take those that guidance very seriously. Chant attentively, read Srila Prabhupada's books, preach, associate, right? Try and improve the japa, because Prabhupada says the foundation of Krishna consciousness depends on attentive chanting. Now, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada also talks about material happiness as being of the lowest grade. Why? Because it's connected to the body. Body is temporary, right? Even if we get the highest pleasure in this body, it is temporary. I'm sure we all have experienced that. Nothing with this body remains permanent. It is temporary. So that we have to understand that even the highest material comfort is temporary. Today we have money, tomorrow we may not have money. Today we have food, tomorrow we may not have food. Today we have a job, tomorrow we may not have a job. It is temporary. That is the nature of this material world. So no point, Prabhupada mentions that there's no point even going to heaven, because we have to come back, right? Ah Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna. Even from the highest material planet Brahma Loka, we have to come back into this material world. So even the happiness of impersonal Brahman is small, right? Prabhupada explains those three stages: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. These are the three stages, right? So the lowest is impersonal feature of the Lord. Second is the super soul feature, but the highest is the Bhagavan feature, the supreme personality of Godhead. So even of the impersonal Brahman feature, that realization, that happiness that one gets is also very, very small. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy comparing it to the water in the hoof print of a calf, right? A calf puts the print on the mud, and then there is a small hole there, and then there's the water collected in that. Is that does it have any significance? No, that's just a little bit. But love for Krishna is like the ocean. Compare the hoof print and the complete ocean. There is a vast difference. So once a person gets pure love for Krishna, then that is complete happiness. That should be our goal. Loving Krishna in pure state of mind. Then Prabhupada talks about buying a ticket to go back to Godhead, right? In the purport he says, how many dollars do we pay to get that ticket? What could be a guess? What do you think is the price of the ticket to go back to Godhead? Prabhupada has also explained in one of his lectures that there is this train of Krishna consciousness, and you can hop on that train and it is free. You don't even have to pay anything, right? But then we say, the train might go too fast, it may go too slow, the seats are not comfortable, the view is not good. I think I can wait, I'll wait for another train. It may be too late, the train may be gone, and we have missed the train. Now that we have this human form of life, we have got this body that is all of a human being, which means we can think, we can absorb the knowledge, we can analyze it, we can contemplate on it, and we can follow it, we can put it into practice, right? So why not awaken that intense desire for Krishna, right? When we get that intense desire, that lolium, that greed for Krishna, that is the price of the ticket to hop on that train. That is the price, right? And this material life, this material world, it's all temporary. We all came alone. Of course, it's different for twins who are born together, but generally we come alone. We stay alone, right? And we have to go alone. It's not that, I can hold on to someone's hand and say, oh, I'm going, you also come with me. You also have to come with me. No, no, no. Like, oh, I'm too attached to my husband, I'm dying. Husband, you also come with me. You have to. No, it doesn't work like that. Come alone, live alone, go alone. Nothing is permanent in this material world. So why are we wasting time running, 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 building relationships that we know are going to end, right? They are going to end. Yes, today, I am someone's spouse. Tomorrow I'm gone. Then that spouse is alone. Then what? You think the spouse will stop living? No. Supposing I leave this body tomorrow, you think Geet Govind will stop living? No, he will continue living. He will still continue following his goal in life. That is pure love for Krishna, right? Nothing stops. And I am quite sure after some time, I will be forgotten. That is how this material world works. How many people in our lives have come and gone? Do we remember all of them all the time? Nope. We remember them on their death anniversary. Oh, that was such a nice person, died 5 years ago or 6 years ago, whatever. The point we have to understand is this material body is temporary. We have to go to a place. We are permanent, eternal souls. We need to come out of the cycle of birth and death, and we need to go to a permanent place. Stop wasting our time in this material world. Stop building relationships that are going to come to an end. That doesn't mean we should not have relationships in our material life. We must, yes, but there should not be attachment. There has to be only affection, which means the whole family together progresses in Krishna consciousness. And the spiritual master can help us and guide us. He can help us understand how to build that relationship with Krishna, right? Why does he keep stressing on attentive chanting? Because our success in Krishna consciousness depends on chanting attentively. That is the very first step. Prabhupada in his purport is comparing, different rasas in this material world, which are actually the perverted reflections of the spiritual world. And over here, they are all temporary, they are distorted, they are impure, right? But once we can understand that the rasas in this material world are temporary, then there will be no more frustration. If we don't have expectations, if the spouse is expecting from the other spouse, the spouse should do this for me, should say this, should do that and all, and then that doesn't happen, what happens? We start pulling our hair, frustration. Why are we expecting? Why not concentrate on our own Krishna consciousness? Why not improve our own conscious? Why not improve our own spiritual life? Concentrate on that and make it pure, make it perfect, right? Why go after perverted reflections, which is temporary in this material world? So once we can understand that, then we will not be frustrated. Now in the purport, I'm going to end with this small explanation in the towards the end part of this purport of verse 56, where Srila Prabhupada explains that these three above verses are about activities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In verse number 53, it's about the transcendental nature of Krishna, that is explained. In verse number 54, explains Krishna is detached from Maya. Even though Maya is Krishna's energy, he is detached. We get controlled by Maya. Krishna does not. And verse number 55 is talking about Achintya Bhed Abheda Tattva, simultaneously one with and different, right? We've already talked about that in the previous two Saturdays also, right? So Krishna, he is one with and he is different from the living entities and the material energy. And the final verse that we took today, 56, talks about approaching a bona fide spiritual master. One must learn the process of devotional service from a bona fide spiritual master. So I'm going to end the class here with verse number 56. If anyone has any questions.